Welcome to another edition of One More Light with me, Val Kleinhans. I have the lovely Hannah Jenae on the podcast today because she is, in my words, I'm gonna call you a mental health advocate because that
Oh,
is a cornerstone of what you post online. You're a content creator that's passionate about self-love, self-care, and sharing your own mental health journey. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for being here.
oh my gosh, my pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me on your podcast. I've been looking forward to this. I'm so excited to be here.
I know I love BSing about mental health, BSing about anything really. I miss
Mhm.
doing it when I left radio, and now I did this whole thing just to have an excuse to meet people like you. Really,
Oh, that's wonderful. I had no clue you were in radio, so this totally makes sense.
long time ago. I
Okay.
left in 2018, and then that's when I started my whole blog, just like you started your blog in the same year. I was reading. You
Yeah.
started. So tell me about the beginning of that. Why go public with your mental health journey? Why have a social media presence at all?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's a really good question. And it's a really long story, but we're here as storytellers.
Mhm.
So I started blogging, I think it was in 2019 is when I went live, but it was my experience in 2018 with the passing of my grandparents that kind of just sparked my desire to start talking. So, starting in the fall of 2018, my grandpa ended up in the hospital.
Mm.
And not too long after, my grandma, for separate issues, also ended up in the hospital. And they eventually went to hospice and they eventually passed away. And so they didn't pass away, I think, until December 11th. So we were devoting so much of our time and energies, of course, to being by their sides and loving on them and being there for them. But as important as that is, it's also exhausting as well, mentally and physically.
Mhm.
And I was just starting to feel really drained, and I felt like I needed to do something for myself regardless of like how small it was. And so I was thinking about this. I think it was like November 30th or 31st, whatever the last day of November was. And it kind of just came to me like, let's do a self-care challenge. And so for the next 31 days, I did something every single day for myself. And that ended up being so important to me to have that one thing to look forward to, whether that was reading a book or taking an extra long shower or I don't know, I'm a skincare person, so doing something special for my skin that ended up
Mhm.
just being so important to my overall well being. And at the end of like the 31 days, I felt like I had something to suddenly say. And
Mm.
I went to college for English and communications, and I was on my school's newspaper. And ever since I had graduated from college, I did not have an outlet in which to express myself. And so I decided I'm going to launch a blog. And so in January of 2019, I started working on it. And I think it was in March of 2019, I launched hannahjanae.com.
Cute.
And
Well,
so,
wow.
yeah.
I'm like, why am I listening to my own life story right now? I mean, literally, like, what is it about content creators and getting journalism degrees and mass communications degrees? I have met so many that have the same degree, and I
Really?
have one too. I chose to do radio after mine. You mentioned that okay, social media and being online ended up being your outlet. So, what did you end up doing? Did you have a full time thing going on, and that while this was happening, what was that story?
Yeah, I did. So I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks before my grandpa ended up in the hospital. I got my first job out of college, and I was the social media and influencer marketing coordinator for a local business here in Grand
Perfect.
Rapids, Michigan.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And I think, I also my 9 to 5 is working at Mayo Clinic right now.
Oh, okay.
And we see a lot of nurses and healthcare providers that don't employ self-care a lot. There are
Mm,
so many that are just overworked, or, they take on visiting with a patient just because that patient needs them. And that, 8-hour shift easily turns into 12, 15, 16 hours. Like, it's
yeah.
not unheard of for that to happen. I see it all the time. You were able to recognize that you needed to say, wait, let's pause here for a second, because myself as a caretaker, I need to do something for me.
Right.
Talk to me about that light bulb moment. When did you realize that you were just doing the most and you needed to take a bit of a pause and focus on your own self-care?
Oh gosh. I don't know. It felt like a very spiritual moment. I remember like having been in prayer like earlier that day and
Mm,
thinking about like what could I do for myself, and the idea at first did feel a little selfish, but as I have learned, self-care is not selfish. You need to do these things for yourself. Self-care should not be a reward that you look forward to at the end of a long week. It's something that you should probably be integrating into your life every single day. And so coming to that watershed moment, it was a very spiritual one, and it felt like I had been given the answer by a higher power.
wow.
Oh.
Okay, well, easy enough. Like,
Yeah.
and I mean, but a lot of us reach burnout, like physical
Yes.
burnout, before we even get there too. Was that happening for you, or it was more about prayer for you?
Um, I wasn't experiencing burnout at that time. I experienced some really heavy burnout about a year and a half ago,
Mm,
in November 2021. Um, and I had never experienced burnout quite like that before. So it wasn't burnout at the point at that point in 2018.
mhm.
Um, yeah, it was more of just like an emotional, physical, spiritual, mental exhaustion. And it definitely could have had the potential to turn into burnout as well.
Yeah. Another, of my favorite reels that I've seen you make is one that was a reminder that it is important to protect your peace. More important to protect your peace, I'll say, than it is to understand why things happen the way they did and to overthink things. I am a chronic overthinker. I am the worst
Too.
at it. I will be up at 3 a.m. trying to strategize and analyze what I could have done differently. I don't know if it's a Capricorn in me. I don't know if it's the anxiety in me, all the above, but I'm an overthinker too. And this is totally something that I'm still working on.
Me
How
too.
did you really reach that realization that it's just simply time to let things go, and it's not so important to understand why things happen the way that they do?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's a great question. Um, so I'm still working on it every single day.
Also,
I was a very cringy child, I have now realized. And so things that I have like said or done like in third grade sometimes come back to me and I'm like, ooh,
it's always
uh,
then.
yeah,
It's
oh
always it's
yeah.
always like elementary school weird
Or
moments,
middle
awkward
school.
moments, and you're like, I should not have done that, or I totally could have said that differently, and then it wouldn't have been as cringy. And it's like, I am 32. And this
Mm,
happened, like, I am
yeah.
laying in bed at 2 a.m. and I am 32 now. Like, this is not, this was third grade.
Yeah, yeah. I'm 27, and yeah, I'm thinking about things that happened like 10 years ago, and it's taken a lot of work with my therapist, but
Mm,
I just have to remind myself those things are in the past. My present self has no power over those things, and they need to be left in the past, but also I can learn from them. And I believe that I have learned from them. And in some way or form, those things that did happen have shaped the person I am today as well. There's a specific instance from my senior year of high school where yeah, I really wish like I could go back and change things, but also I have to understand that no, this is how like the chips lay. And so now I have to
yeah,
accept it. And also like how like the way that things happened probably were meant to happen. I don't know. Yeah.
yeah. Like,
I have to go through that accepting phase.
facts. Like, the photographs are there. I have to accept the fact that we were doing a side bang and giant Kat Von D eyeliner, and
Yeah.
it's not. It that is what it is. But no, but seriously, I found that in the times when I'm really caught up in that anxious mindset and I'm overthinking, because I feel like anxiety has a lot to do with perpetuating the overthinking.
I agree.
When I'm in that mindset, I'm like, I'm totally ignoring what's going on in front of my face. It's
Mhm.
robbing me of the joy that I could currently be experiencing right here, right now. Like,
100%. Yeah. Your
so you
past is
found the same
robbing
thing.
you. Yeah,
Yeah.
your past is robbing you of your present. Yeah. Yeah, I completely understand that. Um, I don't know, this thought just came to mind, but um I got married last summer, and at the time I was seeing like all these TikTok videos from brides and saying things that they wish they would have done differently for their wedding.
Oh, okay.
And uh, I was like, this is kind of sad that you're kind of like living in the past and you're living with like these regrets and that you're allowing them to take up so much space in your life. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That was just kind of my feeling towards it. And the way I look at my wedding, like I could have done different things with like my hair. So it wasn't
Yeah.
like blowing in my face, but also I have that memory of just like brushing my hair out of my face and looking at my husband's smiling face as like we're there at the altar. Um, and so in a way, like I treasure those memories that maybe others would change. I don't
Yeah,
know if
we
that
get
makes
so
sense.
oh, it does, because we get so
Okay.
caught up in weddings. I mean, I'm gonna be married for 9 years in October, and it was just like I still remembered that day. I think we all do because it's a huge day. So you
It's
remember
huge.
the day in general, but then for some reason you always remember the craziness, and it's way better if you can like look up back at that and just laugh. Like,
Mhm.
one of the stupid arguments that my wedding had was over a cookie table, and like who was baking what kind of cookie and how many and who was assigned to what and blah 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 blah. And I am like, girl, it is a cookie table. It's desserts.
Mhm.
We have a full meal set. No one's going to starve. If you want to bake, have fun baking. That's the point. Don't there's no rule with like, I need 40 chocolate chips and I need, 20 oatmeal raisins or blah 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 blah. And
Yeah.
people like expected this military operation. And I'm like, this is not the
No.
vibe
Yeah.
at all. Like, we want this to be a lot more casual. Now, I could focus on that forever,
Mhm.
and or I could sit back and go, oh my God, we fought over a cookie table. Like,
Right.
this is like what? Like, no. But now, it's changing your mindset, changing your perspective, which
Yeah.
isn't easy to
Yeah.
do.
No, it's definitely not. It's definitely a situation where you have to like retrain your brain.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Recently, you've also chatted a little bit, at least on Instagram, I've seen about healing your inner child.
Yeah.
And I've seen that as a trend, like just in general in mental health, but I'm not sure I totally understand what it means. So, talk to me about what that meant for you, healing your inner child, and how you
Yeah.
even learned about it.
So it's something that came to my therapist about, and I talked to
Mm,
her and really wanted to know more about it myself because I felt like I just had some situations in my childhood that were still holding me back as a 27-year-old woman. And
mm,
so she had me do this exercise of going through like the timeline of my life, like every single like memory that I could remember, like just write it down along with like the year, the month, the day that it happened. And so I
mm,
went to like my baby books and started looking through these photo albums and trying to remember things that happened all throughout my life up to where I'm at today, 27. And I presented this really long timeline with her, and we just talked through everything. And we kind of came to this conclusion that I might get a little emotional. I hold a lot of shame. Um, from a very young age, I felt like a burden to my parents. I felt like a
mm,
financial burden. I also carried shame for I guess, like, hitting puberty sooner than others, and
Mhm.
having my body change along with it. And then when I was in third grade, I was put on my first diet by my grandmother because I
Wow.
wasn't the right size for her. And so all of these things just kind of added up, and it it suddenly made sense, like, why I grew up so quickly.
Mm.
And I couldn't enjoy my childhood like other kids. And so the homework that she had me do after that timeline project was sit with myself and figure out the things that I loved doing as a kid and start doing those as an adult. And so I did some brainstorming, and I went to Michael's and bought a bunch of like art supplies because I loved to draw when I was a kid. And so I
Mhm.
started drawing again, and I loved reading as a kid. And so I've gotten back into the fantasy genre, and I'm really enjoying like authors like Sarah J. Maas and the amazing and vibrant worlds that they create. And um, I loved baking as a child as well. So I'm doing that. I'm trying to just relive, or I'm trying to like tap into like all these things that I enjoyed doing as a kid, but it's just sort of like Barbies and Polly Pockets essentially.
Yeah, oh my god, Polly Pockets, yes. Why like, I had to watch my Polly Pockets very closely because my brother was younger than me, and we were like, "Don't eat them."
Yeah.
But I totally remember those. But it sounds to me, now that you describe it and now that I'm hearing a little bit about your own experience with it, it sounds almost like reclaiming your power in a little bit.
It
L
is. Yes. Yeah.
like doing the things that maybe you couldn't do or were restricted, if
Hmm.
from doing or doing as much as maybe you would have wanted to, then, now as an adult, you have the freedom to do so, so to
Yes.
speak.
That's a really great way to look at it. Yes, it's exactly that, reclaiming my power, and reclaiming those experiences from my childhood.
Yeah, so
Mhm,
that you're not dwelling in that same negative space for years and years and years. I understand that. Now I have a better understanding of the importance of it too and how it really works. So
mhm.
that was helpful.
Yeah, my
Uh,
pleasure.
so at the beginning of the year, I noticed you posted that it was important to just let whatever it is you want more of in your life be your guide for 2023. How is that going so far? Because we're a little bit into it.
Oh my gosh, it's going so well. So my word for the year, my intention that I'm putting into the world this year is abundance. I'm just living
Mm.
with this abundance mindset. I'm saying yes to more. Um, and so that has just manifested itself in um I think four key things really that I've just been trying to like update my audience on Instagram. So I wanted to learn more, and so I have a 75-day streak on Duolingo.
Oh, what
I
language?
Japanese.
Wow. Okay. And you feel like you're getting better at it?
Yeah, so I actually took 2 semesters of Japanese when I was in college, and so for a little
Okay.
while it was just a refresher, but now I'm really learning a lot more, and it's been
Cool.
great. Um, One of my other intentions was to read more. And so far, I've read, I think, 10 books this year, which has been great,
Cool.
mostly fantasy. Um, I wanted more no makeup days. And so
Mm.
far, I think I've only worn makeup 7 days this year. I think this is my seventh day of wearing makeup.
Oh,
And
wow.
then I also wanted to embrace more curly hair days. And so late last year, I realized I actually do have curly hair. Let's really lean into this and learn how to work with these curls instead of just straightening them down. And so I have learned how to do my curly hair, and I'm loving it. So that's just kind of how more has been manifesting in my life.
Yeah, there's something to embracing yourself in a natural state and how that plays into self-love or translates into self-love inadvertently. You don't even realize, but just like you embracing your natural curls, that's showing yourself love for
Mhm.
who you are as you are naturally. I don't know what it is about like embracing our natural hair textures you, because I'm telling you, I've been using the Kristen S like air dry
Oh,
foam,
yeah.
and I'm like, thank you. Like this makes my shag haircut look exactly the way that I wanted it to look. And it's so funny because I was using so much product before to get my hair a specific way. And it's like, I already had the natural texture. And when you
Mhm.
realize that, then it's this light bulb moment of, I don't I hate myself that much.
Right,
What?
it's so empowering, and you just feel good about yourself. It's a good hair day every single day. It kind of changes
Always.
your mindset or
It
outlook on your
does.
day.
It does, and I don't understand why. Well, I think I do. I think a lot of it comes from. I was gonna say I don't understand why we always like are so susceptible to this messaging that there's an expectation to everything we do.
Mhm.
We see. I think we see a lot of it through media. I think we see a lot of it from just our daily interactions from other everyday people who submit to that messaging and become a believer in it, and then they spread that bad juju, and it's like,
Definitely.
no,
Definitely. And it gets
no.
into your own head, and so then you have high expectations of yourself as well, but also of others. That's something as well that I'm working in therapy, trying to not have such high expectations of people, just kind of let go and
Mm,
not let people disappoint me. Like that was kind of my problem. People were
yeah.
just disappointing me, but it was because of myself and like the expectations that I was putting on them.
Oh, okay. So is
Yeah.
that maybe like the key there? Like, did your therapist help you to realize that a lot of it was the own expectations that you had inside that really are irrelevant, or what was she working with you on there, and how was that process?
Yeah, so we were just kind of talking through like the friendships that I've had throughout the years and why uh, were some toxic, were some me things, and just
Mm,
kind of like working out like why those friendships didn't last. And indeed, some were toxic relationships, and others were, yeah, it was me. I was putting too many expectations on that relationship. And now that I'm aware of that, I can kind of course correct myself now. Um, yeah.
yeah. That's a beautiful thing. So what's next for you, and what can we look forward to as your followers?
So what's next for me? Well, I told you before we started, we're getting a dog.
Yeah. So
Nero,
dog pics are coming, ladies and gentlemen. We have a newfie
yes.
puppy on the way.
Yeah, we have a newbie puppy on the way. We're so excited to bring Nero home. He's 12 weeks now. Um, so he's a big puppy. But what else? I don't know. Like I really just living my life. I feel like I've hit a stride and I'm just being my most authentic self on Instagram and TikTok. And I'm just enjoying like newlywed life with my husband. But, like we have plans in the future to like welcome children, but probably not right now. But
Yeah, on
yeah,
your own time. I'm
yeah,
definitely a big
exactly.
believer that that's got to be a personal choice. Like, oh, I can talk like we do a whole other episode just on like the expectation of children and
Oh
what
yeah.
comes with that. And oh,
Well, it's so funny too because like I feel a little bit pressure as well because I see so many people online right now that are pregnant and I'm like, I want to join the club. Part of
yeah,
me really wants to join the club. Like Elise Myers is pregnant, Rihanna's pregnant, and then like I have so many friends on social media that they're also pregnant and I was like, I want to join in. But do
yeah.
I really right now? I don't know.
Yeah. I
What
mean,
happens will happen.
right. It's up to you and him. It's what
Mhm,
works for the two of you. And if you guys are just enjoying being newly married, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that too. I think about that a lot. Like I can't have children naturally,
mhm.
so if I want that someday, then it's going to have to be a different type of choice. But
Yep.
people don't think about that, and they don't just like pause and like think before they ask these kinds of questions. But
Mhm,
it's a lot to think about, and I'm so excited to see what happens with you wherever it ends up going. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for chatting with me today.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you again for having me, Val.